The Cask of Amontillado. I had put up with 1,000 injuries from Fortunato, but when he insulted me as well, I vowed revenge. I did not, however, utter a threat. In time, I would be avenged, this was definite. I must not only punish him, but punish him in such a way that only the victim, Fortunato himself, would know. Neither by word nor deed had I given Fortunato any cause of doubt my goodwill. I continued to smile in his face, and he did not understand that I was smiling at the thought of his death. He had a weak point, this Fortunato. Although in other regards he was a man to be respected and even feared, he prided himself on his expert knowledge of wine. When it came to inspecting paintings or precious stones, Fortunato was a quack, but in the matter of old wines he was sincere. In this respect I did not differ from him. I was skillful in wines myself, and I bought fine wines whenever I could. I ran into my friend one evening about dusk during the supreme madness of Carnival season, and the whole city is alive with party-goers and masqueraders. He hugged me with too much warmth, for he had been drinking much. He had on a tight-fitting striped outfit, and on his head was a large cone-shaped cap with bells. I was so pleased to see him that I thought he'd never stop shaking his hand. I said to him, "My dear Fortunato, how remarkably well you're looking today. I have bought a huge cask that is supposed to be filled with Amontillado wine, but I have my doubts." "How?" said he. "A cask of Amontillado in the middle of Carnival? Impossible!" "I have my doubts," I replied, "and I was silly enough to pay the full price without consulting you in the matter. You were not to be found, and I was fearful of losing a bargain." "Amontillado!" he exclaimed. "I have my doubts," said I. "Amontillado!" "And I must satisfy them." "Amontillado!" "You seem busy," I said, "so I'll go see Lucrece about this. If anyone has a critical mind, it is he. He will tell me." "Lucrece cannot tell Amontillado from sherry," scoffed Fortunato. "Yet some fools say that his taste is a match for your own," I told him. "Come, let us go," said Fortunato. "Where?" "To your wine vaults," he said. "My friend, no," I argued. "Some other time, perhaps. I will not impose upon your good nature. You obviously have other plans." "I have no other plans." "My friend, no. I can see that you have a severe cold as well. The vaults are terribly damp." "Let us go, nevertheless," Fortunato insisted. "The cold is nothing. Amontillado! You have been cheated, I tell you. As for Lucrece, forget him. He knows nothing about wines." Thus speaking, Fortunato took my arm. I put on a mask of black silk and a cloak, and we hurried to my mansion. None of my servants was home. All had left to make merry at Carnival. I lit a few torches and gave one to Fortunato. I led him through several rooms to the archway that led into the vaults. I passed down a long and winding staircase, asking him to be cautious as he followed. We came to the foot of the stairs and stood together upon the damp ground of the catacombs, an underground tomb of my ancestors, the Montresos. My friend's walk was unsteady, and the bells upon his cap jingled as he strode. I heard his lungs struggle in the damp air. "How long have you had that cough?" asked Fortunato. My poor friend coughed so hard and long that he found it impossible to reply for many minutes. "It is nothing," he said, at last. Come, I said, we will go back. Your health is precious, and you are rich, respected, admired, and beloved. You are happy as I once was. You are a man who will be missed. For me, it is no matter. We will go back, or else you will be ill, and I cannot be responsible. Besides, there is Lucrece. Enough, he said. The cough is merely nothing. It will not kill me. I shall not die of a cough. True, I replied, and indeed I had no intention of alarming you unnecessarily. However, you should use all proper caution. A drink from this other wine will defend us from the damp. Here I opened a bottle that was stored nearby. Drink, I said, presenting him the wine. He raised it to his lips with a leer, and then paused and nodded to me while his bells jingled. I drink, he said, to the dead who sleep around us. And I drink to your long life. He again took my arm, and we proceeded. These vaults, he said, are extensive. The Montresors, I replied, were a great and numerous family. We had passed by long walls piled with skeletons and casks of wine, and we were deep inside the catacombs. I paused again, and this time I seized Fortunato by his arm. The damp, I said, it's making you worse. Come, we will go back before it is too late. Your cough. It is nothing, he said. Let us go on, though. Another sip first. I gave him more wine, which he downed at the breath. His eyes flashed with a fierce light. Then he laughed and threw the bottle upward with a gesture that I did not understand. I looked at him in surprise. He repeated the moment. A bizarre one. Do you not understand the signal I just gave? He said. No, I replied. Then you are not a Freemason. Yes, yes, I said. Yes, I am. You? Impossible. A Mason? You belong to our secret society? I am a Mason, I replied. Give me a sign to prove it, he said. It is this, I answered, producing forth the folds of my cloak a mason's trowel used for applying cement. You're making fun of me, he exclaimed, stepping back a few paces. But let us proceed to the Amontillado. Be it so, I said, replacing the tool beneath my cloak, and again offering my arm to him. He leaned upon it heavily. We continued our route in search of the Amontillado. We passed through a range of low arches, walked down several flights of stairs, and arrived at a deep crypt, another tomb. The foulness of the air made our torches glow rather than flame. At the farthest end of the crypt, there was yet another crypt that was less spacious. Its walls had been lined with human bones. 3 sides of this smaller crypt were decorated in this manner. The bones on the 4th side had been thrown down and lay scattered upon the earth, forming a mound of the same size. On this 4th wall, we saw still another crypt. It was about 4 feet deep, 3 feet wide, and 6 or 7 feet high. It was backed by a wall of solid granite. It was in vain that Fortunato, lifting his dull torch, tried to see in the depth of this crypt. Proceed, I said. Herein lies the Amontillado. As for Lucrece, he is an ignoramus, interrupted my friend as he stepped unsteadily forward. I followed immediately at his heels. He quickly reached the end of the recess and found his progress stopped by the granite wall. He stood there abruptly, bewildered. Before he knew it, I had chained him to the granite wall, and its surface were 2 iron rings about 2 feet apart. From one of these hung a short chain, from the other a padlock. I threw the links in the chain around his waist and locked them together. He was too surprised to resist. Withdrawing the key, I stepped back from the recess. Pass your hand over the wall. You cannot help feeling the dampness, I said mockingly. Once more, let me beg you to return. No? Then I must leave you. But first I must give you all the attentions in my power. The Amontillado! Cried my friend, still not recovered from his astonishment. True, I replied. The Amontillado. As I said these words, I busied myself among the pile of bones already mentioned. Throwing them aside, I soon uncovered some building stones and mortar. With these materials, and with the aid of the trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance of the niche. I had scarcely laid the first layer of masonry when I discovered that Fortunato's drunkenness had mostly worn off. I heard a low moaning from within the depths of the recess. It was not the cry of a drunken man. There was then a long silence. I laid down a second layer, and a third, and a fourth, and then I heard the furious vibrations of the chain. The noise lasted for several minutes, and I ceased my labors and sat down upon the bones so that I could witness and listen with more satisfaction. When at last the clanking stopped, I went back to work. I finished the fifth, sixth, and seventh layers without interruption. The wall was now nearly level with my chest. I paused again, holding the torch over the masonwork. I threw a feeble rays of the figure within. Several loud and shrill screams bursting suddenly from the throat of the chained form seemed to thrust me violently back. For a brief moment I hesitated. I trembled. I reproached the wall and replied to his cries. I shrieked too, making my screams louder and stronger than his. I did this, and the yelling finally stopped. It was now midnight, and my task was almost done. I had completed the 8th, ninth, and 10th layers. I had finished part of the 11th, and last, only one stone was left to be fitted and plastered in. I struggled with its weight. I placed it partially in place, and then there came out from the niche a low laugh that made my hair stand on end. It was followed by a sad voice, which I had difficulty recognizing as that of my friend, the noble Fortunato. The voice said, "Ha ha ha, he he he, a very good joke indeed, an excellent jest. We will have many a rich laugh about it later, he he he, over our wine, he he he." "The Amontillado," I said. "He he he, he he he, yes, the Amontillado. But is it not getting late? Will not he be waiting for us at the mansion? The Lady Fortunato and the rest. Let us be gone." "Yes," I said, "let us be gone." He understood my meaning, and his joking tone changed. "For the love of God, Montresor!" "Yes," I said, "for the love of God." I listened in vain for a reply. I grew impatient and called out, "Fortunato!" No answer. I called again, "Fortunato!" No answer still. I thrust the torch through the remaining hole and let it fall within. There came forth in return only a jingling of the bells of his cap. My heart grew sick. It was the dampness of the catacombs that made it so, I'm sure. I hurriedly finished my labor and forced the last stone into its position. Then I plastered it up. Against the new masonry I built the old pile of bones. For half a century since, no mortal has disturbed them. Rest in peace.